Warning: this video contains major spoilers for Obsession. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it first. Seriously, right now, we'll wait. It's in theaters, and it is absolutely worth it. Okay, you've been warned. Right now, there is a movie playing in theaters that was written by a 26-year-old while he was working at a coffee shop. Shot in 20 days on a budget that wouldn't even cover the catering costs on a normal Hollywood production, and has made over $370 million worldwide. It's called Obsession, and the story behind it is almost more unbelievable than the movie itself. Let's get into it. First, what is this movie? Obsession is a 2025 supernatural horror film about a guy named Bear, played by Michael Johnston, who works at a music store and is hopelessly in love with his best friend Nikki. Rather than just telling her how he feels, Bear breaks a mysterious novelty toy called a one-wish willow and wishes that Nikki would love him more than anyone in the world. The wish gets granted, and the results are horrifying. Nikki, played by Inde Navarrete, transforms from a normal person into something increasingly terrifying, obsessive, possessive, and completely unhinged. The film has been called a darkened version of the romantic comedy. It's a love story that forces you to ask a very uncomfortable question: is getting exactly what you want actually a good thing if the other person never chose it? Critics have gone wild for it. It holds a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 98% audience score, making it the best-reviewed wide-release film of 2026 across any genre at the time of its opening. Audiences gave it an A- on CinemaScore, a grade only 5 other horror films since 2019 have achieved. Variety praised Inde Navarrete for one of the most physically and emotionally taxing horror performances in years. Slash Film compared her to Linda Blair in The Exorcist and Sissy Spacek in Carrie. Now here's where the story gets really interesting. The man behind Obsession is a 26-year-old from Mobile, Alabama, named Curry Barker. Before this movie, he was not a Hollywood director. He was a YouTuber. He is known for the sketch comedy YouTube channel called That's a Bad Idea, which he co-created with his creative partner Cooper Tomlinson. Funny videos on the internet. That was the gig. But Barker had been obsessed with horror since childhood. He described himself as a straight C and D student who played in the marching band, had his own rock band, and ran a YouTube channel with friends. He taught himself to edit at age 11 or 12 and never stopped making films. In 2023, Barker uploaded a short horror film called The Chair to his YouTube channel, which impressed producer James Harris of T-Shop Productions. Harris reached out and offered Barker the chance to adapt The Chair into a feature film. Instead, Barker pitched Obsession. Harris told him, "Write the script and we'll see." Barker took 8 months to complete the screenplay while working at a coffee shop, every night after his shift, chipping away at a story he believed in with no guarantee anyone would ever see it. The finished script landed at Capstone Studios, whose founder was already familiar with Barker's work. They greenlit it. The budget was at most $750,000. To put that in context, the average Hollywood studio film costs somewhere between $50 and $200 million. Obsession was made for less than 1% of that. Barker shot the entire film in just 20 days. The crew was lean, the shoot was tight, and some crew members were volunteers paid in gas and mileage. Art director Sally Choi later called for industry reform, noting she was making $300 a day while simultaneously serving as production assistant, set dresser, graphic designer, and background actor. Barker wore multiple hats. He wrote the script, he directed, and he edited the entire film himself. He said editing was where he felt most at home because he had been doing it since he was a kid. For him, it was like comedy, all tension and release, knowing exactly when to hold a shot and when to cut. He worked with cinematographer Taylor Clemens to develop a very deliberate visual style. Center composed shots with extra headspace designed to feel uncomfortable and lonely. There were complications. The production had to forego reshoots of the party scene after the house where they filmed it burned down in the 2025 Los Angeles fires. For the ending, Barker shot multiple versions, including one inspired by Romeo and Juliet. On the advice of his playwright father, who actually contributed the Hansel and Gretel monologue in the film, Barker chose the version where Nikki survives. Barker submitted the finished film to the Toronto International Film Festival. It premiered on September 5, 2025 in the Midnight Madness block. The reaction was immediate. 2 days after the premiere, Focus Features entered talks to acquire the worldwide distribution rights for $14 to $15 million, the highest price ever paid for a genre film in the history of the Toronto International Film Festival. They beat out bids from A24 and Neon to win the rights. The movie cost $750,000 to make. It sold for $15 million before a single regular person had ever seen it. It had already made 20 times its budget back before opening day. Jason Blum, the man behind Get Out, The Purge, and Paranormal Activity, came on board as executive producer. The theatrical release was set for May 15, 2026. Before opening weekend, Focus Features projected Obsession would gross between $8 and $10 million. Solid for a small indie horror film. Nothing crazy. It opened to $17.2 million in its first weekend, ahead of expectations. But the real story hadn't started yet. In its second weekend, it made $23.9 million, a 39% increase from opening weekend. Horror films are supposed to crash in week 2. The whole genre is built around big opens and brutal drops. Obsession went up. Then the third weekend, it made $27.3 million, bigger than the second. The fourth weekend, $25.3 million. The fifth weekend, $19 million. Every single one of those weekends made more money than opening weekend. That almost never happens. As of now, Obsession has grossed over $370 million worldwide, making it Focus Features' highest-grossing film of all time and the 8th highest-grossing film of 2026. It is closing in on the all-time box office record for an original horror film, and there is a real chance it becomes the first original horror movie to cross $400 million globally. Against a $750,000 production budget, the film generated a return on investment of approximately 40,000%. Making it one of the most profitable films ever made relative to its cost. So why did a tiny horror film from a first-time studio director become one of the biggest movies of 2026? A few reasons. 75% of the audience is between 18 and 34 years old. Gen Z showed up and kept showing up and brought their friends. Reports of people seeing the movie 3 and 4 times started circulating almost immediately. The marketing was genius. Focus Features made actual replica One Wish Willow toys as merchandise. They sold out within hours. The studio put up cryptic billboards across Los Angeles and New York, featuring Nikki's increasingly unsettling texts and voicemails, alongside a phone number you could actually text to receive messages from Nikki herself. The movie became an event before most people had even bought a ticket. Word of mouth did the rest. Strip away the supernatural elements, and this is a story about what it means to want someone so badly you stop caring whether that's actually fair to them. That hit home for a generation navigating exactly those kinds of relationships. And Curry Barker is simply a very good filmmaker. The film earns every scare. Nothing happens without reason. And at the center of it all is Inde Navarrete, giving what many are calling one of the great horror performances in recent memory. Curry Barker was working at a coffee shop, writing a screenplay nobody had asked for yet, with a YouTube channel and a camera and a dream. Studios are now reportedly offering him $10 million for projects he hasn't even pitched yet. He has already finished shooting his next film, Anything But Ghosts, a horror comedy starring himself and Cooper Tomlinson as con artist ghost hunters, with Aaron Paul and Bryce Dallas Howard. He has also been hired to write and direct a 24's reimagining of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not bad for a guy who was making sketch comedy videos on the internet 2 years ago. That's a wrap on the obsession behind Obsession. Drop it in the comments if you learned something new. Smash that like button, subscribe to Couch Tomato, and we'll see you in the next one.